G'day, mate. What's your name?
My name is Rebecca DeUnamuno.
Rebecca DeUnamuno. And what do you do, Rebecca?
I am a comedian, a voiceover artist, and a radio presenter.
G'day, guys. Andrew Barnett back with another episode of Crowdworkcast. My guest today, Rebecca DeUnamuno, who is an absolute champion. You've probably heard her on ABC radio over the years. She's also an amazing improv and stand-up comedian and generally just a good hang. This was a really, really fun chat. And I probably will have Beck back on more because I don't feel like I even scratched the surface with all the stuff she's done. So, cracking episode. If you'd like to follow Beck, find out where you can go see her live, etc. She's on Twitter at Rebecca DeUnamuno and on Instagram, de numero uno, as in the number one. Absolute champion, great follow. As always, give me a follow at Andrew Barnett Comedy on Instagram, Facebook, etc. If you'd like to come see me, I actually have some dates to announce. I will be on the May 6th. A few people have asked me over the years, when am I coming to Brisbane? Well, Brisbane, May 6th. I will be at the Underground Theatre as part of the Sydney Comedy Festival. I'll be doing my new show called How Good on May 6th in Brisbane. Those tickets not on sale yet, I don't think, but check Brisbane Comedy Festival website for the details. I'll also be doing Sydney Comedy Festival on the 20th and 21st of May. I'll be performing in the Enmore Comedy Club, which is part of the Enmore Theatre. So come along and see that. That's my brand new show, How Good. Other than that, just look out for other dates on my socials and wherever. But let's crack on with today's episode. This is Rebecca DeUnamuno. So, in that order, is that how you consider yourself? Comedian first?
Yeah, I would say comedian first because it was kind of the first thing that I was always doing comedy. That was what I was always sort of doing, and it led to all of the other things. Voice work is people go, what? When you say I'm a voice artist?
People, I get jealous because that is one of my dream gigs. Like I love, because I do a little bit of radio at the moment, and I do love when, you got a live ad read, boys. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Yeah. Deep voice. If you need workwear. Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's unreal. And it's really interesting because you get the script you get it when you arrive to the job. Like, you don't get it beforehand. So there's no prep work. And so you're like, so you just got to have all these 1,000 voices come to you in an instant, and they go, it's a bit when I did my very first voiceovers, it was on Triple J, and they would tell me to do it on a Yana scale. Like, Yana event was still popular back then, so they would say this is like a 9.5 on the Yana scale.
A Yana scale. That is a goal to get to that, like where you are a scale that other people work by.
That's right.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
I've done one audition, and you know what I loved about voiceover auditions, and I don't know if I should say this on the podcast because it'll make comedians all want to do them, is you get paid for the audition. You go in and because I don't know, it must be unionised or something, it is a good deal.
It is.
Like, it's not crazy money or anything, but they pay you and actually for an hourly rate, it's lovely money.
Yeah, and they also pay you, you do a thing called submissions. So the agency will come up with an idea for an ad, and then they'll get someone, say myself, to do a version of it, and then they send that to the client, and the client says either yes or no to the ad based on how you've done it.
Oh, wow.
And so that's for TV and radio. So I've seen, ads on TV where I've gone, hey, I did the submission for that. So you still get paid for just being the test voice for something. And then if it works in your favour, the best one is when they go, actually, we really like that voice, we'll keep you. So you get paid again to record it properly.
And that's the double dip.
Yeah, that's the double dip. We love a double dip.
I love a double dip.
Rarely happens in comedy.
Oh, I tell you, yeah. You don't even really get to do the same material too many times. Not at the same place.
No.
Same audience. They're like, nah, mate, seen it. That's so what is the key? Because I found really hard the auditioning. One, I had a agency bloke over through one window, and through the other window I got the engineer and the I don't know who the other guy was, but lovely blokes. Yeah. But instructions. Okay, yeah, we just need that we just need like 30% more energy. I'm like, how do what, huh? I don't know how
I know,
to
and
measure
I say
energy.
something like a bit more smile in your voice.
Yes.
That's a big note. You always get a bit more smile, and it's so funny because people would hear that who don't do it and go, What does that mean? But it does make a difference. Like if I'm doing a read like this and then suddenly I do a read like this, it does change your voice.
It does.
It makes it brighter instantly.
I find that even in well, because when you're smiling too, the intonation changes.
Yeah.
Everything, like you can hear that. Like I think we pick up more than we realize as humans. We're conditioned to pick up more than we realize with that stuff. But I find even now, if I've had a rough day, or if I'm tired or whatever, and I'm going to do a set somewhere, I've started to realize that there's a chunk of my material that unless I go out smiling and really, it doesn't fly. And it's this thing where sometimes if I'm not, like, you know, I'm a bit tired or whatever, before I'll now sit and remind myself and do that psycho thing where you look in the mirror and smile and hey, all right, here we go. Showtime.
It's showtime. That's that great scene in have you seen the film All That Jazz?
No.
And it's about Bob Fosse, the choreographer who did all the major shows. And it's I always get it wrong. It's not the comedian bad film guy it's Roy Schneider. Yeah. Anyway, he plays him and he does this whole thing where
Roy Schneider as
in Jaws.
Jaws and what was the deep sea? There was a show where they were a science group under. It was like Star Trek under the ocean.
Yeah. Him. Not the other dude, not the other Schneider. But he does this thing where he looks in the mirror and he does like a line of cocaine or something, and then just goes, "It's showtime," and it's always what's in my, not the line of cocaine, but the it's showtime bit is like, it happens. You have to do it sometimes, don't you?
Yeah,
and you've had a long day.
Absolutely not.
Sometimes you have to. It's in the contract.
Yeah. Okay, we just need, for this VO, we just need like 60% more coke. Just coke it up, please. This read.
I'm sure there's been many an actor over the times, not in voice work, obviously, but it's just gone, that's what they need to get the performance.
Oh, mate, there's probably even in voice work, I often think of that, you know, when you get the terms and conditions at the end.
Yeah.
That's probably,
they are some of the,
now I'll bump and do some terms and conditions.
They are some of the hardest things. I've had to do those at the end, and my goodness, that's some of the hardest things to do.
Because they've got to be precision too.
Yeah, and you can't speed it up to the point that it sounds ridiculous. Like you can't, and they'll say, we literally have 4 seconds to get this in.
Now, this is the other thing that blew my mind in those like auditions is, okay, you're at 94 seconds. We need it at 90. Okay, and where do you shave the 4? And like, okay, just do it again, but just get you're 4 seconds over, so just get it to 9. I'm like, have you got a clock for me to look at? Like,
I know. You just got to give it. But what's great is I've always said that I want to have a sound editor follow me around in life just to cut out all the extraneous like crap that you do in your day. That just go, we'll just cut it. We'll just take out a few breaths here. They say we'll just do all this. And you're just going, I need you in my life to
just take some air out.
Can you just pick up the messes as I go through my day?
How good would that be?
That would be the best. And a soundtrack guy. I want a soundtrack guy that also, you know, follows me around and just scores the mood I'm in or my day.
Yes.
Just as you get on the bus, you know, the bus is packed, you can't get a seat. Just a really sad, mournful tone plays.
Yeah, and you feel like you're in your own film.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those. Yeah, like it's just a little camera crew just following me
around.
I'm the protagonist. That's that'd be great having them just cut the, you know, like you know where you you know where the person at the counter asked you what you wanted and you paused for an abnormally long amount of time. Just okay, we're going to cut. We're just going to take the air out of that and just go. Just roll.
Go. So it just makes life smooth. I'd love it. I'd love it.
Just give me an edit point in this conversation, and then we can move on.
And could we speed this up, please?
So how did the voice work come around?
It was interesting. It's a funny story which is related to comedy, funnily enough. It was Gary Eck kind of is sort of instrumental in getting me into it. We did a CD. We did a Tropfest film that was all voices. So his mate Lee Perry, who's like, he'd be the top voice artist in this country. He's amazing, and he does exceptional character voices. And he can impersonate sort of like Keanu Reeves,
Oh, wow.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, a whole bunch of people. And so Gary did this Trotfest film, which was shot. You didn't see anyone's heads. Like, it was all sort of, body shots and stuff, and all voiced as these famous people.
Oh.
And he got me in to voice a role. And so I worked with Lee on that. And then we did a CD where he could do, it was called Hollywood Motel, ARIA nominee, but so many years ago. And
Gary has the most interesting ideas like that, doesn't
so
he?
good. And then so it was this Hollywood Motel, which was where all these Hollywood stars were and everything. And so Lee could do all the voices, and I did Penelope Cruz and a couple of other voices in it. And that's when Lee said to me, "You could do this, And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "You should be a voice artist." And I was like, "Oh, really? How do you do it?" And he's like, "Just get a demo together, and like come see my agent and everything." And so anyway, I went and saw his agent at the time, and they knew of the CD because it was their client's work.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, that's you. Oh, great." And so they said, "Well, do you want to join?" And
Oh,
so I said,
wow.
"Okay." So I got a demo done, and I paid to get the demo done, and then I made that money back with my first job. So it was just one of those.
Nothing in show business is ever that easy.
It was
That's one of those ones
amazing,
where
isn't it? Yeah.
It's always the thing you didn't think was a goal. But
Yeah.
You're like, oh, wow, this worked out and I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such good work. It's never boring. Like, it's always interesting. It's a different job. The most you'll do is like an audio book, which will be sort of a long-term one. Or if you have a contract, like I used to do the voiceovers for the Comedy Channel
really?
years ago. And so it was all the interstitials and all the lineups and everything. And that's great because it's a job every month because you have to
nice.
they change it. So if you get stuff like that, but it's still not boring because it's changing. So I love it.
Do you so where do you work regularly now? Where might people listening to this recognise?
Where would they recognise? Well, at the moment, I've just finished doing a series of ads. They haven't gone to air yet, so I dare not say the name. So there'll be online radio and TV. There'll be something coming up.
Nice. That's the triple.
That's the triple.
That's
the triple
the triple
bill.
pay.
Exactly. And then the funny thing is too, I was doing some audience warm up for. I do audience warm up for Gruen, and then they had this script and just went, "Oh, we need a voiceover." Someone just to do this voiceover, and then they went, "Hang on a second."
Yes.
I was there standing in the room. Could you do this? So I did just a couple of voiceovers for them through necessity. And yeah, so at the moment I'm no regular.
No.
I'm
So
no regular.
did you ever do the ABC? I remember.
I did fill in. The woman that does the ABC lineups regularly was sick one day, and so I got to do them. Like coming up next, like tonight on ABC.
Tonight on your ABC.
Yeah, on your ABC. So I got to do that once, but I did do ABC for Kids.
Oh, wow.
I was a regular on that. That's probably the last.
Go on, give us a taste.
So just relax and close your lids. It's quiet time on ABC Kids.
Now, don't do that if you are driving while you're listening to this, but that's awesome.
And then you'd have to do like, wait, it's the blood,
I think I remember, having this conversation when my kids were little
Yeah.
and you were the voice
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's
Yes,
just
I
like,
remember.
put your kids to bed. That was me.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah.
I needed you to record that so I could just play it in the middle of the day. Oh,
I'm happy to do it anytime now. How old are they now? No, it won't work.
no, they're 12 and 14. They probably
that
won't
won't
go for
work.
it. That would have been so handy though. Middle of the afternoon. I don't know. The TV said.
Yeah,
you know,
you've got to go.
You
But
better
do you
go.
remember there was do you remember on was it Newcastle like Win TV and
Big
stuff?
Dog?
Big Dog?
Big
do you remember
Dog?
Big Dog? I brought Big Dog up the other day and people had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah, Big Dog was Win, and then NBN.
NBN, that's
Right.
it.
We didn't see because I moved to Newcastle when I was 16. So Big Dog was still around.
Still around, yeah.
But didn't really rule my life.
Yeah.
I was allowed to
really?
ignore. I was allowed
Imagine
to ignore
that,
Big
an
Dog.
expose, Big Dog ruled my life.
Yeah, mate, you just turn the TV off because Big Dog was going to tell you what to do. So we moved there, but I think when we were down on the border, there was Prime Possum.
That's okay. Yeah.
Prime Possum maybe sent kids to bed. But Big Dog had the full pajama
Yeah,
routine.
yeah, the
Big Dog
whole
going
routine,
to bed,
yeah.
and then had to cover
Yeah.
cover the eyes of the suit because they don't close.
They don't close.
It's like Big Dog doesn't have eyelids, kids. This is terrifying.
Sleep with both eyes open.
Yeah. Big Dog couldn't have just slept like with his face in the wall or something like that, where you didn't know if he had his eyes open. No. Put your hands over your eyes.
Yeah, isn't that funny? But it's funny, isn't it, how like TV and stuff becomes like parenting. Well, it's not funny because I guess screens are so prominent in kids' lives, but how that TV execs go, actually, we need something to help parents get their kids to bed right now.
And it does make a difference, that sort of thing. I remember, there was, when my kids were little, that ABC Kids was just, some days just your saviour, because you're being torn left, right and centre. And as much as, I don't put the kids in front of the TV, the stuff that's on that is mostly just good. There's educational elements.
True.
There's not like like they're throwing any random garbage on there. So
that's true.
it was helpful. That's all. My friends now with young kids are all just raving about Bluey. Bluey is the thing.
That's dream job. If I could get a role on that, that would just be check done. That would be awesome.
Did you used to do? Who did? Did you used to do a voice on what was his name? The Hoot.
On I was on Hoot Hoot Go, which was the spin-off of Giggle and Hoot.
Giggle and Hoot, yes.
Yeah, and I played Hootaluna.
Hootaluna, I remember, because I remember talking to you about this, like when my kids were into that, like. Yes, oh man,
that was Hootaluna, and that was a really interesting job because it was a voiceover audition. So I had to record myself doing my version of the character. Go on, do it. Oh gee, okay, here we go.
Greetings, our pals. It's me, Hootaluna, moon dancer extraordinaire.
That's the best. If I close my eyes, I can see that puppet. That is the best.
Well, that's the thing, because then I went, I got the job.
Yeah.
I have to puppeteer now. And I'd never puppeteered in my life.
Oh, so you had to puppeteer
so
as well?
I was puppeteering. Because it's like very, like, because, Sesame Street and all that, like, and Jim Henson, like, it's all puppeteers these days. It's all that person. So I had to do and I had this puppet that was the heaviest puppet known to humankind because it was so massive. She was just this round ball, but she had a helmet on and she had these shoes, but she also carried heaps of props. So she'd have like a suitcase and a mallet, and you're having to hold all of that and talk and manipulate and get the camera angle right for the puppet and everything. Oh my God. They had to get a physio to come in. The ABC paid for a physio to come in and check me over to make sure I was physically capable of doing the job.
Wow, that is... Yeah, I wouldn't have ever considered that you had to do the actual puppeteering as well. That is amazing.
And it's so funny because I come from, the background of being on television, and they do final checks, and I'm used to standing there and having somebody do my makeup and fix my wardrobe. And so I just had to hold up the puppet.
Run the lint brush over the puppet.
The puppet would have the lint brush and everything. It was all final checks for the puppet. It was like, no.
I found it hard enough to know which camera to look at half the time anyway. When you've got let alone trying to find it with a puppet.
When you're looking, because you're looking down at a monitor.
Oh, so yeah.
So you're behind like the set and everything, and you're looking down at a monitor, and you're having to get the eye line right from that angle, but up there. Wow. Yeah, wow.
And because it's reversed too, isn't it? It's mirror. So you think you're going left, you need to go right.
And when you think you're still moving the mouth, because of course you've got to move the mouth in the same way that you're talking, and that, like, sometimes the mouth would be open and I wasn't saying anything. It was a crash course.
Just start yawning.
Yeah, that's right. And they'd say, cut. Okay, let's do that again. Eye line. Oh,
eye line.
How do you get a puppet that has no eyes, really eyes, to look at the eye? Like, it was talk about being, ambidextrous and having to do extraordinary things at once. Yeah, that's
way more coordination than I would have. Like, it's obvious, but it's something I'd never considered.
And then it makes you look at people like, those that do Sesame Street and stuff like that. And you look at, like, Carol Spinney, who does Big Bird, and you think, that is extraordinary what he was doing.
That's crazy.
It makes you appreciate the uber skills that they have. But, I was Hootaluna, and I thought, the voice is fantastic, but,
Oh, man, that is... Have you ever done that, like, with that, like that Hootaluna? Obviously, that's quite a... departure from your natural speaking voice. Have you ever committed to one where you're like, I'll do this for an audition, and then gone, oh geez, I hope I don't have to do that because that will kill my throat?
Yeah, many times. And when I did it the most was I used to do a live comedy show. It was called Open to Suggestion. And it was an improvised show, and I'd play 3 characters as determined by the audience. So I'd say, what's, a number between 1 and 5, and what's the time of year. And then, another suggestion, and that would determine the 3 characters I played. And I'd deliver a series of monologues as the 3 characters. And I'd ring a little desk bell on the stage to have a lights down, lights up to alternate between the characters. And then by the end, all 3 characters' lives have to somehow merge. If I chose an old person voice, and I was like, man, at about the 25-minute mark of an hour-long show, I'd be like,
the old person's going to die.
The old person. I did that. If I couldn't find a way for or if I hated a character, I just killed them off.
That's so good.
And then came back as the younger version of them and stuff.
And I woke up and it was all a dream.
It was all a dream. Well, it's sad that I died, last week, but here I am, 21-year-old me, to tell you about my early years, like stuff like that. Yeah, many times. And I'd go, because if you do, especially if you're doing something that you can feel it, push on your vocal cords, you can be screwed.
Wow, I love when people do different voices and that sort of stuff. It's so it's because especially a good impression that will always. Because people sometimes now, I think sometimes in comedy, sometimes people are a bit cool for that. Like it can be a bit looked down on, but there's no one not laughing when it's done well. There's don't get me wrong, there's hack ways to do just about anything.
Sure.
But a good impression that's done well with some good fodder, good comedy is. For me, that's one of those tricks that I'm like,
agree.
Oh man,
and
you're
right.
That.
You're right. How it's considered to be a bit sort of like, that's a bit 80s style or something for some reason. Because, I don't get
Everyone
that.
pictures the guy in the jacket with the sleeves half rolled up, going, if Jack Nicholson was at a motel,
That's right.
and they'd run out of toilet paper, it might look a little something like this, and they turn
so
around
true.
and get into the Whereas that part of it, I think, is but that's what you're picturing. He's an impressionist.
Yeah,
here we go.
I know. And because now that you've mentioned it, I'm like, who is there? Apart from SNL, like Saturday Night Live would have those that do characters, and you go, that's a spot on whomever.
Yeah.
But I can't recall. Have you seen anyone live lately that's done
there's
that?
a couple of people on. No one live. There's a couple of good American guys online. I see their clips online. There's a guy named J.L. Colvin who does a bunch of voices. He does a bunch of the guys at ESPN, and I saw this thing where he was going through the ESPN offices doing the voices at people in the office, which is just good content. Yeah. But there's not, especially here. Like I think there's more of them in the States where there's guys that do.
I mean, Simon Kennedy does an extraordinary Trump, and Jonas Holt does an amazing Abbott.
Oh, Jonas Holt's Abbott
so
was
good.
I mean, no one was more upset than Jonas when Abbott got.
But he's diversified. He's now doing others, which is great. He's
actually,
so bang
Lawrence Mooney did.
That's right.
What's his name? Turnbull. Yes, for a while.
That's right.
Which was another really spot on one.
Yeah.
But there's no one doing like Jonas will do is capable of doing a bunch of them, but you don't. You see it's just part of his set where he'll do a couple of impersonations, but it's not like a.
This is
the
what I
only
do.
Thing I do. He does a good Russell Crowe too.
Yeah, great.
He's got a good voice for that. But there's not lot of.
Well, that's a hole in the market.
Yeah, well, I wish I could.
Although I did see a younger comedian whose name escapes me at the moment, Liam, and his surname escapes me at the moment, do impressions.
Liam, if you're watching, call in.
Yes, we want to see you do it more.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Because I think there's something to it, but it's one of those things though. It's like there's all these things that get sort of put in the uncool pile for a little bit in comedy, and because it becomes that idea that this might be a bit hacked. But then you find someone who does it well and is doing something different, and all of a sudden it's like, that we can do that again. That's
right.
cool.
And that just reminds me completely of improv, because that's where I started. And when I started doing improv, it was considered the poorer cousin of actors and nowhere in the realm of comedians. We weren't comedians. We were improv actors. It was this weird sort of, we didn't fit in. And it was considered real, and theatre sports, which is where I started, was considered really daggy by some people. And it's amazing how I've watched it now go through the change where everyone's an improviser now. everybody, because everyone goes, oh, whose line is it anyway? Oh, yeah, great. Oh, like everybody can name
But
stuff.
everyone knows about the groundlings.
Yeah,
They know
that's
about
right. Whereas
Second City.
back then, no one had a clue. And when I went to Canada and was I was doing Just for Laughs in now we're talking 2001, and everyone here was like,
forget.
"Why are you go? Yeah, never forget." It's a good year. And everyone's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And you're going, and I go, "Yeah, it's the Improv World Cup. Like we're doing it, in Montreal." And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, whatever. See ya." And then to get over there and be in Canada, and they find out that you're an improviser and you're part of the World Cup, we were treated like royalty.
That's so, it's so funny because it was sort of just a uni.
Yeah.
Like I remember it had that impression, not that I really went to uni long, but it had that impression. Yeah, well, that was the outward impression of, there's just a bunch of uni kids who are, doing the review for the engineering department doesn't really cut it, so they do a bit more.
Yeah, they just want the drink tickets at the end.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we did. And eventually when I ran the theatre sports at Sydney Uni, you just take the drink ticket book with you. That's Thursday sorted.
How good. So who was, in those days, who were you improvising with that we'd known?
Okay,
now?
so at uni, the likes of, I was so lucky just to be surrounded by a bunch of really creative people, and it's just one of those things where you find each other,
Yep.
And so university, my generation we're talking about the Chaser guys, so we had Charles Firth, Craig Rucastle, Chaz, all did theatre sports.
Whatever happened to them?
Yeah, whatever happened to them? Sarah Kendall played theatre sports. Tom Gleeson played a bit.
Another nobody.
Like, look
never
at them.
turned into anything.
But even like our muso, we were doing a demo match during O Week one time, and it was Rob Carlton was hosting, and he said, "Oh, this scene it's set in a piano bar. We need does anyone play the piano?" Because there was this piano off stage. And because it was O Week and everybody was sozzled, like completely sozzled, we just hear this, yep, and this bloke just puts his hand up and then walks towards the stage, and he's barefoot, and we're all going, oh my God, this is going to be disastrous. Comes up onto the piano and just starts playing the most phenomenal way, just skills amazing. And he's now Paul Kelly's keyboard player. So
oh wow,
So not only was it like that, just the people that were performing in that context that went on to do stuff, but it was the likes of him,
creative people across the whole thing.
So lucky. And then when I did a grand final of theatre sports at Sydney Uni, and Julie Zamiro was judging it, and she is also from the Sydney Uni alumni of theatre sports, and so she said, I
feel like Sydney Uni is there's that very strong, but especially with theatre sports, the people that have come out of theatre sports to careers, especially in the ABC, that's sometimes called the Sydney Uni to ABC pipeline.
And then sometimes you hit a tunnel wall. That's exactly right. But it's just because we were given the opportunities. Like they really encouraged us to do extracurricular stuff. And so she said to me at the end of the thing, I want your team to play. I'm doing the Belfast Street Theatre Sports. I want your team to play. And I was like, what? It was like, I just started. And my teammate goes, I've already registered us. It's okay. Because he'd played and won the whole thing before.
Oh, wow.
So I then turned up to Belfast Street. And so that was, Rob Carlton, Adam Spencer. He was also at uni with us.
He was a debater at
he
uni,
was,
wasn't he?
Yeah. And he did all the we did arts reviews together and everything. And because, he was there for a long time.
Well, he was, I remember going to when I was in high school, I was in year 10 or whatever. I was in the river. I was represented the Riverina in debating.
Nice.
And I remember coming up for the state debating that was in Newcastle. But then we got sent to a thing at Sydney Uni, and Adam Spencer was the speaker, and he was held up, and he was, I don't know if he was quite doing Triple J breakfast at the time, or
probably,
he was just
probably
about to.
not. I reckon he was. It sounds like that because he won best speaker at the World Debating, and then because I heard him tell this story actually on a podcast, so this is what has reminded me. And then Triple J were doing
don't mention other podcasts on this, please. I don't want people to know this.
I didn't give the name away, so nobody will know.
Good.
But he was, so Triple J came to do a live broadcast from Sydney Uni.
Yeah.
And then they had him on because he was, the go-to guy. And that's when they said to him, could you do the weather in but done in a numerologically like advanced way, and
Yeah.
he did it because he's an improviser, because we did theatre sports, and he
And
just
a genius
used
mathematician.
absolutely. And so you put those two skills together, and then from that's how he got the spot
wow.
on Triple J. And myself and Chaz and Sarah Kendall, I remember we'd all take turns. He'd do mid-dawn shifts, and he'd say, "Do you want to come in and do the mid-dawn shift with me?" And I think it was just to keep him company because the hours were shocking.
Yeah, and you know what? You got a few hours to fill.
you got a
Why
few
not?
hours.
You need someone to talk to.
Yeah, that's right. And so we'd go in and just sit and do the mid-dawns with him, and chuck him some music and say, "Oh, you should play this," or he'd talk to us briefly or whatever on air and stuff. So, yeah.
What a great way to get introduced to radio too.
Yeah, it was
do you know
unreal.
what I mean?
And it was free for, like, it wasn't a free for all. Like, there were people listening, but it was loose compared to.
Well, it's the low risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of, it's the good place to make your mistakes and learn. Okay, well, this is what you do. That's what you don't do.
That's right, and that's where I got my first voiceover job. When I was still at uni, was when Adam went to Triple J, and he said, can you record the voiceovers for me? Oh. So that was my first sort of foray into it, without thinking that that's something that I would, be doing. And it was, good old ABC pay. So you used to try, it was per hour, it was like $50 for the hour or something. So you'd always try
Which
and
when
get
you're
it.
at uni.
Oh, huge, but you'd always just try and push it into the second hour.
Good
So
thinking.
that you could get, like, you could buy groceries that week,
Look, it's the arts, but it's still a public service job.
That's right. So it's funny because I hadn't really made that connection, but that's how it all kind of.
Oh wow.
That's how it all connected. Yeah.
Because I was curious because you have we've been crossing paths for 10, 12 years now.
Yeah.
But you were an established entity when I started comedy, and I was thinking on the drive in, I was like, I don't actually know your story of how you got started. So was that your entry point through the
it was through that,
improv?
And they also had, Sydney Uni also started that year a stand-up comedy competition called 5 Minute Noodles, and everybody had 5 minutes.
Oh, heck,
and you could do whatever you wanted, and Adam hosted it, and we were actively encouraged by the Sydney University Union to participate, because they wanted to get people involved. So they were like, we need, people to enter at least the first week. Can you please do it? So we're like, yeah, no worries. We were used to getting up on that stage. And so I jumped up, and that's where Sarah jumped up, and that's where we saw Tom Gleeson for the first time doing stand-up. And so that, it was sort of from there that we all, through the combination of theatre sports and that, we all went, oh, hang on, this is something that we want to pursue. And the reviews were another outlet. And it was interesting because when I was doing improv, it was like, this feels like home. This is my bag. This is what I should be doing. And it was really interesting to watch Sarah and Tom sort of go in the stand-up direction. But we were always very much sort of, working together, but just in different sort of fields. And then we got put together as a sketch comedy group with Subby Valentine.
Oh, wow.
Down at the old Harold Park.
Yeah.
And it was Andrew Taylor got us together and said, get a sketch comedy group. There's no live sketch happening, so why don't you get a troupe together? And he was representing Tom, Sarah and Subby at the time, and they said, oh, you've got to get Beck. We've just done the reviews with her at uni and everything. And he said, okay, I'll take whoever you want. No idea who I was. And that we started doing that. We started doing late shows at the Harold Park Hotel.
Oh, wow.
And so sort of from doing that, and then also playing theatre sports at Belvoir, it just became you get to know a lot of people, you get to be familiar with comedians. They say, hey, do you want to do this? So it was I always say it was like an apprenticeship, because you learnt on the job. Like, someone would go, oh, I want to do this short film, come and do something for it or whatever.
But I think that's the only way. Like, I love when people ask you, say, oh, how do you get into comedy? How do you get into stand-up? There's no other way than starting.
Than doing it. You got to do it, because you can talk about it as much as you want, and you can take as many classes as you want, but unless you're up there trying it, and we know that, like, when it comes to playing a new room for the first time, or you might have some new gear that you want to try, and like in your head it sounds like it's working, but until you have an audience reaction, or until you've stepped on that stage and know what the venue's like, you've got no idea.
Also, the time pressure of when they're sitting there staring at you, the amount of words you thought you were going to say compared to what actually comes out of your mouth is sometimes very different. Yeah. Because you're like, oh, no, I need to cut to the point here. Like, just that, I have to, I never know how it's going to come out the first couple of times until I'm doing it in front of the audience, and then just trying to find it. Like, I write as much as I can, but it's still, you got to find it in the room.
That's exactly right. And that was the thing with improv. It was sort of, it became my sort of thing. And then we did comedy festivals and everything with improv shows. So they were my first, and Laugh-A-Palooza, we did the Melbourne Fringe. That was the name of the sketch show. 1998 was my first Melbourne Fringe. But then I did my first Melbourne Comedy Festivals, Adelaide Fringes and everything from, say, maybe sort of from 2000 kind of onwards. And that's where we got to meet all comedians. And we would get a lot of comedians to come on our improv shows, like to be special guests or whatever. Yeah,
because as much as comedians think they're sometimes too cool for it, they all, secretly you're like, that actually looks like a bit of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And the idea of being up there, not on your own when it starts to...
And that's what I'm missing at the moment. It's interesting because I'm kind of, with stand-up, I'm like, I'm missing the camaraderie of an improv troupe or an improv team or just even a duo. I'm kind of missing that, working with someone else on the stage. So I'm in my mind next year, I'm going to... I think I'm going to drag someone up with me and do like two-handed improv stuff, because I think it's time to get back to like kind of what I do best, which a lot of stand-up audiences haven't seen me do what I really do. Your stand-up though, you incorporate a lot of your improv skills into that. One of my favorite things you do is the Shakespeare thing, which just blows my mind in terms of just even you remembering all the details you're getting out of the audience. Yeah, and that came from we did an improv show when the Comedy Store moved from Crystal Street in Petersham to Moore Park. We were asked to do a weekly improv show. So every Thursday night we would do an improv show, and we would get whoever was, because there was always just a headliner for the week, and whoever was headlining would come and be our special guest on our show. And so the whole show was geared towards them being the star, and and that came from
SNL style.
Yeah, exactly. And so we got them. We did a segment, a thing that was it was a blind date, and we'd ask a guy some information, and we'd ask information about what the female character and everything, and then they would meet, and it was myself and a Murray Fay who would play the blind date, or Marco Mustak, and we'd play the blind date using those characteristics. And when I was doing stand up, I went, there's something in that I could do solo. And then I've always loved improvising Shakespeare. So I thought, I'm going to put that together, but I'll tell the story instead of how they meet. Yes. And go to a real couple, ask them these questions. How did you meet? All these odd questions to throw in there, and then improvise their relationship. Yeah, well, this is called Crowdwork Cast because I've always liked doing crowd work. I'm probably doing less of it now than I've ever done, just because you get to a point where you're like, no, you need to be able to, you got to write and you got to do, I just want to work on the stand-up skills a bit more. But watching crowd work's another one of those things. The internet's awash with clips at the moment. It is, comedians doing crowd work. And look, there's a range of good to horrendous, but that you doing that to me is the interesting, taking those questions, which is kind of the idea of this podcast. Was I want to start just with the very basic, where you're from, that sort of stuff, and see where you can go in a conversation. And admittedly, most of the people that have been guests I know, so I know some interesting questions, some questions I've wanted to ask them for a while at least. But that to me, that's something, that's where you're doing something with crowd work, asking those sort of, how'd you meet? All those questions, and then taking it somewhere completely different to anything else I've seen. And what I love is I've seen you do that bit so many times, but it's different every time. And I always, for me, it's like watching, you ever gig with a magician? And you just sit at the end just going, I don't know where that came from. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? I am still a bit like a 10-year-old, and I love sitting watching, because especially, I host a lot, and we've done a lot at the store where, I'm hosting and watching you, and I always, I'll get backstage sometimes by the end of the weekend, you've seen everyone's set a few times, and so, you're flicking on the phone or whatever. I always found myself listening, how's she going to pull this out? I'd listen to the questions that you're asking and their story. And so, the other thing is you would do normal-ish crowd work with
the story. So you'd have your gags. You'd go somewhere with it. You wouldn't just go, where you from? Okay, I need these 3 details. Thank you, and here we go.
Yeah.
It was boom, normal crowd work, and then at the end was this amazing trick where you just brought it all together.
And sometimes I shoot myself in the foot with doing the crowd work with them when I'm asking the questions. Sometimes I make a joke and then I go, damn, you should have saved that for in the Shakespeare
I was
part.
going to ask you, how do you decide which goes in the Shakespeare part? Because you want to finish strong.
Yeah, because the whole thing is, like, people always say, like, so what do you... And I go, you can't think. If you think, you stuff it up.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of just let it happen. And so if it does, it doesn't mean that I'm not thinking, oh, you should have saved that because that could have really worked at something else. But it challenged in the same instant. I'm actually thinking, okay, then game on, try and think of something, another gag relating to that moment.
Nice.
So you kind of, you can't look at it as like, you can be disappointed. But the challenge I set myself then is to try and up it and come up with a second gag relating to that answer or that response or whatever.
Yeah,
and that's
audiences love a callback too. So if you can get that second gag and then the callback, explosions in the room.
That's right. And so you just got to, and that's why I say it's stream of consciousness stuff. You've just got to let it out, because the moment you start thinking about it, you'll lose it. Yeah.
That trust you have in your brain is, and it, like, I know when when you're comfortable and you're doing a lot of crowd work, that's when you give yourself the chance. Because the amount of times I've listened to clips back and just gone, oh, you could have, if you just stayed, listen. That's what, when people, the one thing, whenever anyone's asked me what, how do you reckon what the key to crowd work is my tip is always, what I always think I didn't do well enough when I listen to it back, is I didn't listen to the answer, because you're trying to think to get to the... And your brain gets in the way.
Yeah, totally. And it manifests in what I do. In if I can't remember their names, I remember every other detail about their life, their job, their occupation, the 3 words they use to describe their partner, and I can remember all of that. But then, is it Jeff or Jim? Like, because it seems like the simplest thing goes out first, because you've got all this other stuff to retain.
I think we've had this, I've asked you this question, is how do you remember their name? Because that, for me, I'll literally go to someone in the crowd, is there, we'll start chatting to someone, what's your name, mate? Yeah. And then as soon as they say their name, I go, oh, Jeff. Right. And that is just gone from my brain. And I'll never... I think the amount of times I've said to someone backstage, do you remember the name of the electrician I was talking to at the start? What did he say his name was? It's just...
And the older I get, the worse it's getting. But I do tend to now, if they're 2 names that aren't distinct, because sometimes they're really distinct names and you just go, I'm going to remember that. Or there's a bit of that might be Mike and Michelle. Alliteration's easier. But now I just make sure that every time I ask the next question, I use their name.
Yes.
So that's so I'll say so
that someone
Michelle,
in the audience remembers.
Yeah. Oh, the number of times I've had them go, it's Sarah,
Me too.
not Sasha. Like, oh my God, it's like
say to the audience, listen, there's a lot going on up here.
That's right. Wait, just give me another 5 minutes, and I guarantee you'll figure out why I was like bombarded with ideas.
I just said one night, because I think it was about the second name I'd got wrong, and someone in the audience corrected me, and I just went, I don't care. I'm just getting to the next bit.
Yeah, that's right. Just go, hold on a minute. Just give me a break.
His name's not important.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm talking.
That's right.
And plus, none of you remember my name at the end of the night.
Yeah.
No one remembers the comedian's name. They always come up,
that guy.
I really like the guy that did the thing about the...
Yeah, that's right.
So, or when they come up to... The one that really baffles me is when they come up to you afterwards and they go, I loved your joke about this. And you joke about this, and it's one joke's your joke and one joke's someone completely different. And it's like, it's not like, sometimes for me, like, there's a few white, middle-aged white guys wearing jeans.
Just a few
that you'll see around. So if they confuse us, but sometimes it's completely like, how have you confused me with her? Like, that is.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Good joke, so I'll take it. Like, I don't. But depending on the joke, I don't correct it. Yeah. Like, I'll just let them go, I like that
that was a good one too.
Yeah, mate,
I agree.
Give me a follow. You want more of that?
Took the afternoon off when I wrote that one.
Mate, you want more of that? Give me a follow. Come see my show. It's full of that sort of stuff.
That's right. Here's a flyer.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that you're steering away from the crowd work and stuff. Do you feel a pressure to do that?
Only from myself.
Yeah, okay.
Because I got to the point where, so I went through a phase where without getting too deep into it, when my youngest bloke was crook, for anyone listening, this is a revelation. He's fine now, but he went through a stage where he was pretty crook, and he had 2 years, and we were in and out of hospitals and stuff. But all good now. But during that time, I didn't have the mental space to write a lot, but I needed to keep gigging because that was the only time I wasn't thinking about it. Like I didn't. There was just like. When you're on stage, your brain just
breathe.
goes.
And it's a chance to breathe, funnily enough, even though the opposite is kind of like the tension, but it's a chance to just breathe.
It's that thing where, when you first start, there's nothing more tense than when you're on stage. But then once you're used to being on stage, your brain goes to a different place where you're not thinking about all the worries of life. You're just thinking about this. You're in this moment. Yeah. So I was doing that, but because I wasn't writing a lot, because I couldn't really write at that, I didn't have the bandwidth to write anything. I was just super bored with all my material. So I used to just go out and I'd challenge myself, and I was hosting a lot, so it made sense. I would go out and go, I will do as long as I can before I have to go to material. Great. I'm going to just see how far I can go. I remember doing a gig at a room that Sam Bowring ran briefly at Camelot Lounge in Marrickville. I remember doing the gig, and I maybe did one joke all night, and he comes up to me afterwards, he goes, mate, your crowd work has got so good. You just like, I said, he goes, where's this come from? I said, Sam, I am so tired of my material. I just need to say anything else. Yeah. So that's how, but then I was like, okay, well now I'm at the point where I'm tired and I just want to keep writing. And because you don't want to, I also don't want to just be good at one thing.
And it's like flexing another muscle too. Yeah. Like it's, it's time for leg day. You've done,
exactly.
You've done arms. It's time for leg day. I get that.
And the other thing is, I found when I was doing lots of crowd work and it was going well, I was most comfortable when I had good material that I knew I could go to, and I knew it well enough that the way I describe it is knowing all the exit and entry ramps to your jokes. Yep. So where's the latest point I can get onto this joke, and where's the quickest point I can get off? So I can do is whatever length of crowd work, and as soon as it starts to go, I'm starting to hit that dead end. I'm half a question from getting myself back to material, and then that's the magic trick. Then then we're out.
No, that's interesting because it's funny because I'm in that same situation with the Shakespeare bit. It's one of those things where if you're doing a particular gig, you want to kill, I'll do that bit. Yeah. So I'm now trying to challenge myself to do another improv bit that's similar. Like it's not a Shakespeare or anything. And I was on at the store and I told everyone I was going to do it on the Thursday night just to be accountable because because once you get up on stage and everyone's laughing and everything, you're like, I'll just slay them now with the bit I know that will kill.
Yeah, why waste a hot crowd at the comedy store?
Exactly. But I told everyone to make me accountable and for me to do it, and I did it on the Thursday night. And
how'd it go?
It went well. It went well, but I realised, like we said, you have to get up and do it to realise it. It doesn't have an ending. It went really well, but there was no finite way for me to wrap it up.
I get that because I'll get started on a new bit or whatever and then get excited about the jokes that are on the way. And because I get excited, I forget to finish it when I'm writing. And then you get on stage and you're like, 3, okay, there's the 3, shit. Yeah. I haven't rounded this out. I've got to conclude the thought.
Needs a little bow on top, because it's like I go for a single person now rather than couples, and I ask what qualities they're looking for in a partner.
Oh,
and then
this.
And then I do a film noir where I play the detective and all these plants and everything on the search for the person with all these qualities.
Tell me, is it that film noir? She walked in. I knew she was trouble.
I was sitting in my office. It was 8:15 p.m. I'd had a long day, and then I play the femme fatale that comes out, like.
I just gotta tell you, I got a guy. He's looking for a girl with, and then rattle off the things.
So good.
Go to the docks and find the informant. I've only done it the once, so that's where it went. But I think the structure of it works. But it just didn't have an because with the Shakespeare, I do a set of rhyming couplets using their names, and it's like full stop, exclamation point.
Yeah, that is the story of.
That's the story. But this it just doesn't have.
You're gonna have to watch a bunch of film noir.
What a shame!
Those
I
detective.
love those movies. I love those movies on black and white
gams
films.
for days. I love the turn of phrase in those. That's just. I'm so excited to see this bit now.
And I said something along the lines of she had legs that went all the way to her hips.
Yes. I love
just came out. I was like, that's a really strange description. Went for days or anything.
When you hear that, her legs went all the way to the ground. Yeah. It's like,
it's
don't everyone's. But there were all those old sayings that, my grandfather had a million sayings like that. If you examined them to too much. They were so logical. Like you'd go to him, is it Wednesday today? You go, yep, all day and half the night. He had 1,000 of it, and I love it. And I don't know that people have those anymore. So bring it back with the film noir stuff.
Okay, and I'm going to and I think the challenge is because with the Shakespeare I do an animal, so that's my fun part in it, is to play the animal. But I think in this it'll be trying to come up with metaphors that are
so
really long-winded
yeah,
and stupid.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That sound like they could fit in one of those
people
movies.
go, oh, yes.
People go, that sounds ridiculous, but it's an old film.
That's why she did have a nose in the centre of her face.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love that. All right. Well, I'm excited to come see that at some stage. So if people are listening and they want to come see you live or they want to follow you on Instagram, give everything you've got a plug right now.
Okay, I'm on Twitter. It's just, I'm the only Rebecca DeUnamuno on there. You'll find me. I'm on Twitter. Instagram, it's DeUnamuno on Instagram.
I love that name, by the way. DeUnamuno.
Rebecca DeUnamuno on Facebook. Gigs. Oh, my goodness. I'm hosting a charity gig.
I should say this won't be out for a few weeks.
Okay, then forget that.
You missed the charity gig.
You missed the charity gig.
Guys,
oh my goodness!
do
But I'm
something.
doing a few Christmas shows with A-list Christmas shows.
I think I'm doing a few of those too.
Brilliant. Well,
so
I'll see you there.
I'm looking forward to seeing the film noir bit.
Ooh, I don't know. But, okay,
but I will.
have to do it.
I'll do the intro. In the intro, I will plug everything you got on that week. So I'll chat to you about that. But other than that, thank you so much for coming on. Please give Beck a follow. Check her out whenever you get the opportunity to go see her. And if you're single, get your answers ready.
Yes. Or I thought you meant date me.
Yeah, well, hey, she's a catch.
I'm happy for that too.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Mate.